Okay, so a lot about the connection, because I was a real estate agent. And one of the things I got really into, I don't like just taking things for what they are. Okay, this is the way things are, and we're going to live that way. Now, one of me has to, but another one of me shouldn't, and another one of me won't. The one of me that has to is the one that exists in practical reality, has a penis, and there are certain ways to use your penis in women's vaginas, and there's prerequisites that have to be met, and that's, where arguments out of reality come from. But there's out of reality, and that out of reality part is there's a single family home. This is a reality the banks, we all know, take advantage of. Realtors kind of already are the argument and the advertising on, ads for lenders and all of that. So the banks benefit bigly from 30-year home loans and keeping people trapped in their local lives, which is part of something even bigger, that they trap people into local lives to contribute to their community, to stay in their local community instead of being Illuminati like I talk about, where you can just look down on all of that somehow and travel all around. So I said, some people are meant to be Illuminati, some people are meant to be elites, even if they were born poor. They just look at all the Donald Trump stuff, someone with a plane with gold seatbelt buckles. So that's why I came up with the idea, okay, so to not be completely excluded from being Illuminati, even if you're poor, one way we could do it is have a Walmart. Let's have Walmart, let's have Sam Walton have us marry into all the Walton daughters. You can't say they told the Walton daughters don't go near Walmart and they don't have to be in that hell like all of us, and they get to go to Neiman Marcus because look what he did for us. We can work at any Walmart in the country, just show up, scan our badge, RFID badge, and start earning money by being there at any Walmart. And we can also be part of like a foreign exchange program where you can work at Mexican Walmarts, work at Canadian Walmarts, and achieve, citizenship and work into citizenship depending on which side of the border you're on. Do all kinds of things, and just go on vacation. But since you don't have the money to buy a private place, that's one way you can be Illuminati, Red Nose Society, Joe Scarborough, globalist. You don't have to think the way the bank wants you to think as the slave you're supposed to be, by being able to work at a Walmart anywhere you want to work, and work your way across the country or across the pond and anywhere in the world, since it's all over. And so that's one way to do it. But when it comes to the shape of the single family home, and that there are bedrooms and this is for the sex, and there's a lot of things like in cheaper homes where there's less insulation, the kids got to hear the sex of the parents, and it changed a lot of dynamics about sexuality development. There was a book by Sherman, Alexie, I think it wasn't Smoke Signals, it was Lone Ranger and Tonto, Fistfight in Heaven, where he's talking about hearing his parents having sex, because it's a cheap manufactured home. But and whereas you've got houses with more insulation, then you've got more insulation, so you don't hear the parents having sex, and also the parents are less connected to the children, and there could be the kids are allowed to bring people from in the gated community and have sex with them at earlier ages in the home with the parents there or not there. The parents aren't there, and there's because of casita situations or just how rich you are. Like with Donald Trump, I'm sure his kids could have sex at 12 or 13 with Mariah Carey. I wanted to have sex with Mariah Carey, but they could have their attorney bring in Mariah Carey because they have all this real estate. They can jump between all this real estate. So the private property, you can do anything. And the attorneys are setting it up. But the key thing is that I want to talk about, so there's a lot of things you can think about with regard to square footage and the shape of the single family home, and if it's even a good model. Like you look at that Fibonacci spiral, like, it's just the way the elites want it is why that's the way it is. Maybe there shouldn't be a single family home, but how it enslaves us and keeps us in poverty and from being the Donald Trump we're meant to be. But another thing to think about is the square footage aspect. That's a key variable. That square footage, that there is a correlation of square footage to the existence of certain dynamics. And cognitively, I wanted to put forward, and this kind of what the big thing with this video is that cognitively we're going to put forward that people that are slower require more space to function, larger rooms, luxury homes, and so luxury homes actually become, and especially where you've got multi-generational wealth, don't break away early, take as long as you need to break away, stay on your parents' medical until 26, your parents are still going to help you Because we can't afford to buy a home somewhere that's on the map. You're not going to have to move to somewhere that's not on the map, like Pahrump, Nevada. That guy said it's paradise. But we're not moving you to somewhere off the map. We'll make something work, even if you have to live with us through 23, 24. That's just the cost of real estate, and that's, well, instead of the cost of real estate adjusting to the reality that people need to move away and have sex and start procreating, it didn't adjust to that. And okay, I don't know what to blame that on. But I think there's a very dysgenic aspect to multi-generational wealth and luxury, unfortunately. And this is something that they've been trying to look at what to do about. The elites have been trying to look at what to do about, because you've got parents that are helping successively more autistic and dysgenically bred children through generations, and they have to help them to, now they have to extend their development until they're 23. Now they have to extend their development until they're 29. Now they have to extend their development until they're 33. Now they don't fully become adults until they're 40. Not that I have I'm saying I'm not being, what's it called, value laden when it comes to should that be or shouldn't that be. I'm just saying. I've actually said I agree that they should change the age of majority from 18 to, if you have a bachelor's in science degree, because that's just not fair. That's just not fair. I had a video before where I talked about rites of passage, and that's the rite of passage, not 18th birthday. It should be bachelor's in science degree from a major university, at least SDSU, if not USC, UCLA. But if you don't have you can't say, oh, Bakersfield gives you, and that's enough. It has to be at least SDSU. But so that's my definition of adulthood. Once you have a bachelor's in science, BS, it has to be BS. It can't be arts. We have to get rid of the arts programs. What a waste of time. Think about this too. So I'll talk about this too. Why won't they early admit? Well, I don't know if they won't, because Miss Teresa Cho, I was talking about this in an earlier video. She said she was 15 when she went to UCLA. And of course, she was from Hawaii, but she was 15 when she got admitted. So she got to go there and start getting dicked by a very high quality, prime, eugenic, penis that got admitted, then SAT verified, high quality, high pedigree, early psychologist. So everything that she studies is about her real reasons. But you'll early admit someone in their teens if they're going into the sciences and they're going to study basically they're going to study calculus. They know calculus, they're going to study calculus, they're going to do engineering, they're going to be solving the big problems of the body, of the buildings of the next century. You'll let them get a degree at 12 or 13 like these kids from China. But you're not going to let them get a degree in English at 12 or 13. Now, the really mid-major university, they're starting to let it fly because the high school sucks so bad everywhere that, okay, it's still better for them. But, largely when this early admit concept, they're genius, high IQ, genius, James Franco kind of kids, they said, no, we're not going to early admit. We're not going to let someone in that's 12 or 13 into humanities or arts degrees. We will in sciences. And what was the rationale for that? People don't think about that, but is someone that's 12 or 13, can they consent to being raped by their university? No, they should spend more time in high school trying to get closer to the kids in China. I guess a little more calculus to see if they can maybe break in, since we're going to give them time, age appropriately, and break in to do something of actual value instead of being raped up the ass to teach English. But back to my point about the square footage correlation, that there's a very dysgenic aspect to luxury living in large square footage, because you've got, someone's got the kid is more retarded, and then you've got the third generation and the kid is more retarded, but you have the same large square footage room to lay out all the stuff and iron the clothes for them, and it's because your cognition is so slow. It has to be done that way. You have to have, I'm not saying hoarding, it's very different than hoarding, but you have to have all this space because your cognition, you think slower, so you need all this space. Whereas if you thought faster, you'd be able to maximize having all that real estate in square footage. It's a reality of IQ. It's a reality of thinking speed. It's a reality of speed of thought and speed of movement. That it ends up perhaps having a dysgenic function. But in any event, I'm not. That's what about tiny homes? You could say also that someone has to have everything in reach because they're so dumb. Well, yeah, that's probably more about physical fitness, stamina. Because okay, if you're fast enough, you forgot something in another room, you just get up from your chair and go and grab it instead of stewing in your own filth, unable to do anything, and I gotta jack off again. You probably need more physical fitness and stamina. That's probably the reason there. But that you could say that too. So these are things you have to explore. But I do believe there is a lot to be said about square footage living area, and it applies to cognition. And there's things to be gleaned from it about the cognition of the users of the real estate.